This time it didn't vanish so quickly. It disappeared slowly enough for Draco to realize he wasn't dreaming. It was early morning when he opened his eyes, and the silvery mist was dissolving and gleaming in the darkness. It was gone in seconds, and Draco stared at the place where it had vanished. He felt better again. He was fairly dry, and he had slept in a warm bed. Pomfrey had dragged it next to the fireplace yesterday and pilled heavy blankets on top of Draco. Sleep did help him. Damn them all. Drinking all the calming draught hadn't been that crazy. Though Dreamless Sleep Potion might have worked even better, it would have also prevented dreams about the boy wearing white pajamas with red polka dots who smelled like apples and wouldn't stop kissing Draco. Pomfrey appeared shortly and tried to vanish the cloud again. It didn't work, so she had house elves bring Draco some dry clothes and breakfast. Then Draco sat by the fireplace, stared at the grandfather's clock, large pendulum, and felt miserable for exactly 2 hours and 14 minutes, which was when Goyle strode into the room. Draco had completely forgotten about Goyle. It was stupid of him to forget. Goyle was at the party. He knew what went on there. He wouldn't have allowed the Gryffindors to make fun of Draco. It punched them all in the face, at least twice. Unless they had confused him, which admittedly was rather easy to do. Goyle dropped cheerfully into a chair beside him. "You look terrible," he said. "Haven't you been drinking?" Draco asked. Goyle didn't appear to be suffering from a hangover. "Drank half the crate myself," Goyle shrugged. "I felt a bit dizzy. Gryffindors, though," he grinned. "Such lightweights." Draco swallowed. "Potter, too?" "I meant Potter. Can't remember who else used to be in Gryffindor. Well, Granger and Weasley, obviously, but she didn't drink at all, and she kept transfiguring Weasley's fire whiskey to water. Potter hadn't been drunk when he had shown up at the courtyard. He didn't look drunk. And Draco would have smelled the fire whiskey. He would have tasted it. Potter didn't taste like fire whiskey. He tasted like lovely weather," Goyle said. "What?" Goyle pointed at the window. "We could go out flying." Draco studied Goyle's face. "Greg, I'll ask some questions now, and I want you to tell me absolute truth." "I always do, mate." Goyle looked startled. "I heard you were playing Truth or Dare. Is that true?" Goyle froze. "Oh, Draco, I'm so sorry," he moaned. "I picked Truth and the game was hexed. If I hadn't not told him, I'd be full of blisters now." Draco felt like someone punched him in the stomach. "What did you tell them?" "It was Daphne. She asked me where I was in the night of the battle. She didn't see me anywhere, she said, and I told them I had been in the room of requirement with you and Potter and Granger and Weasley and Crabbe." All thoughts of kissing left Draco's mind at once. "And then what happened?" he asked, terrified. "Well, then they wanted to know why, but Weasley got angry and told Daphne this is a party and she should shut up about Voldemort. And then Granger showed up and told everyone there had been a horrible accident and Crabbe died in that room and they shouldn't be more considerate in the future and stop asking questions about that night. And then Daphne apologized and burst into tears and told us how Crabbe brought her flowers once and told her she was pretty, and she told him to piss off. And then Finnegan got up and told Daphne she really is pretty, and she told him to piss off too, and then we laughed." Oh, a knot in Draco's stomach eased slowly. What about Potter? Where was he? Oh, he wasn't there. Not at that point. He said he was supposed to supervise the party, and he didn't drink or play with us at all. He was a right bore, I have to say. But then he went out, and when he came back, he drank a bottle of fire whiskey, and then he was actually entertaining. He danced with the girls and Ernie. That was fun. Millie nearly pissed herself laughing. Oh, Draco said again. He was utterly confused. Why did Potter kiss him then if he hadn't been dared? He couldn't have seriously believed that a kiss would cure Draco. He had said that he was testing a theory. But whose and what sort of theory was it? And why did he get drunk afterwards? Why the hell did he dance with Ernie? Draco asked. Well, he was dancing with Millie, and Ernie didn't like that at all, so he walked right up to them and said, "Excuse me, mind if I cut in?" Goyle imitated Ernie's pompous tone perfectly, and then Potter said, "Not at all, I'd be honored," and he grabbed Ernie and twirled him around the room. Draco wished he could have seen that. So, Millie and Ernie? Really? Really, Goyle said brightly. Draco shook his head in disbelief. Millie claimed she despised Ernie at least twice a day. "You're not angry?" Goyle asked. "About Millie and Ernie? What do I care?" "No, about what I said at the party. I know I'm not supposed to talk about it. I just didn't want to be hexed and sprout blisters." Goyle rubbed the back of his hands. "Not angry. Come on, let's go flying before Pomfrey shows up and stops me." That cheered Goyle right up. They went to get their brooms and headed down to the Quidditch pitch. 20 minutes later, Draco realized that had been a huge mistake. At first, it was brilliant. If Draco flew fast enough, he could almost escape the cloud. But then the cloud had engorged and gained speed, and it didn't take long for Draco's broom handle to turn slippery. It wasn't the first time Draco had flown in a heavy rain, but it had never been without proper protection. His fingers were frozen, his grip slipped, and he crashed on the ground, spinning wildly. Pomfrey was livid when Draco had limped back to the hospital wing. She cured his cuts and bruises quickly enough, but there was no cure for Draco's misery. He couldn't read, he couldn't perform magic properly, and now he couldn't even fly. And the things that he could do, like playing chess with Goyle, seemed dreadfully unappealing. Sleep was his only comfort, but he hadn't slept too much, so it didn't come easily. He was drowsing in a chair when Granger strode into hospital. The sounds of her footsteps woke him up. "What was that?" she asked sharply. She was staring at the empty space between Draco and the fireplace. "What was what?" Draco looked around groggily, seeing nothing. He was pleased to notice, however, it wasn't raining as heavily as it did before he had closed his eyes. Granger frowned. "Nothing. Never mind. I thought I saw something there." He set a pile of something on the table next to Draco. Draco stared at it. "And that is?" "Stupid muggle stuff," she said archly and turned to leave. "Wait," Draco said before he even decided what it was he wanted to say. Granger looked back expectantly, her bushy hair wild around her face. She looked like she didn't get much sleep. The party must have lasted well after midnight. "I heard you were playing Truth or Dare yesterday," Draco said, trying to sound casual. She cleared her throat. "I wasn't. Distaste was obvious in her tone. But I'm guessing you're the one who hacks the game so no one could cheat. This is your area of expertise. Well, yes, I was asked to do it. Draco stared at the pile of class notes on the table. Goyle's hands are back were covered with blisters after the Fiend fire. They were painful and took a long time to heal. Your hacks terrified him yesterday. Granger made a small sound of distress. I didn't know, I'm sorry. Is he alright? She sounded sorry. Draco wasn't too happy about that. He would prefer it if she got defensive. They could have had a fight. He felt like shouting at someone. He's fine, he said. Just thought I'd mention it in case you ever have another party. I'll stick to pimples in the future, she promised. Anything else? She asked when Draco said nothing for a long time. He wanted to say no. He's supposed to. He should have said no and just let her leave, but the words spilled out and Draco couldn't stop them. Why didn't you say anything about what happened on the day of the battle? I don't mean just yesterday, I mean ever. There was a long pause. Are you seriously asking me this? Draco looked up. Granger's expression was unreadable. Yes? She sighed. And why do you help Goyle so much? She looked back at him. He always says the wrong thing and he needs to be told everything thrice. And I don't know. And I know you're not a patient person, but you don't seem to mind. You told me you've been tutoring him the whole summer. He's my friend, is he? Granger's gaze was sharp. He didn't used to be. He used to be your tool, another wand you could use, another body you could shove in front of yourself as a shield. You never took care of him before the way you do now. Before, Draco thought. Before he pulled Goyle out of the fire and held on so hard, he thought his fingers would break and hands fall off if he kept holding him up. He had to take care of Goyle. He was his to protect. If Draco let him go, he'd burn. Why pull someone out of the fire only to throw him back in again? She asked. Draco stared at her intelligent brown eyes, unable to look away. Goyle needs my help. And you don't need ours? Draco shrugged. I've dealt with worse. If you want to tell them, then tell them. Granger's gaze turned sharp. Should we also tell the ministry you imperieused Rosmerta, nearly killed Katie Bell, and Ron plotted to kill Dumbledore? Draco winced. You have no proof. We have witnesses. Harry was in an astronomy tower the day Dumbledore died. He was hexed and couldn't move, but he saw everything. He heard you confess. Draco closed his eyes. He has suspected as much, but always hoped Potter has arrived after when Snape showed up. He'd been telling himself that if Potter had been there all along, he would have done something. He wouldn't have stayed silent and idle. But Potter had been there after all. He knew everything that was to know about Draco, and yet he kissed me anyway. He said he'd kill my parents, Draco said quietly. I know, Granger sounded impatient, but Wizengamot might not be as sympathetic. Would you prefer to take your chances with them? Draco shook his hand. Good. She gave him a small nod. Then shut up about Voldemort and concentrate on your NUYTs. I'm sure you're aware that your future depends on them. She jerked her head towards the pile of table. The glue is waterproof, but don't expose it too much. This one angry cloud you have there. With that, she turned and left. The sound of her heels echoed in the large room. Draco examined the notes on the table curiously. They were indeed Granger's class notes from last week, including the classes Draco missed and 3 essays due on Monday and Tuesday. Each piece of parchment was encased in transparent plastic, and the edges were smeared with yellowish substance. Waterproof glue, Granger had said. It must have taken her ages to make that without magic. Draco pushed all his troubling thoughts away and spent the rest of the day studying. In his desperate attempt to keep his mind busy, he memorized everything that was written on Granger's plastic notes. He never knew more about Dr. Obley's oblivious unction and principal exceptions to Gumb's law of elemental transfiguration than he ever wanted to know, and he learned a great deal about atmospheric charms from the charms essay due on Tuesday, none of which unfortunately helped him get any ideas on how to cure his condition. By 9, his head was throbbing and his vision was blurry, and he had no choice but to abandon his studying, which was unfortunate because he had been trying hard not to think about things he didn't want to think about. He couldn't decide if Granger's words made him feel better or worse. He couldn't even decide if finding out that Potter didn't kiss him because he had been dared to do it made him feel better or worse. He assumed it should have made him feel better, but it was so much easier to be angry with Potter. That was familiar and comforting. He was always angry with Potter. That was something he knew how to do and was sure he could do it well. His thoughts turned tiresome and repetitive, and yet he could not turn off his mind. He did reach a decision, however, right before Pomfrey appeared to make his bed, a complicated process because of the old protection charms she'd cast on it. They did not help much, but they did help. He decided to attend his classes tomorrow. He wasn't looking forward to seeing Potter, not after Potter had turned Draco's cloud white with a kiss, but the thought of spending another day alone with his thoughts seemed unbearable. To be continued.